Hello and welcome to the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and tonight we're going to break down the Seahawks' 28-21 victory over the Cardinals and also go over some key injuries to watch ahead of Week 11 Sunday. Thank you as always for tuning in, bringing you new episodes every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, trying to make you the most educated football fan around, and we like to have a little bit of fun while we do that. So without further ado, let's talk about this Thursday night matchup. Had a lot of hype coming in, and as we saw, as the Ringers, Kevin Clark once tweeted a long time ago, the Seahawks have never played in a normal game, so that did continue tonight. Don't be deceived by this 28-21 final score. We had a missed extra point, a safety, multiple field goals. It was just a wild game, kind of back and forth. So deceiving score for how weird of a game it truly was. I want to knock off a few things before we go through the players here. First of all, there's a lot of guys on Twitter, saying that Kingsbury challenge with about 2 minutes, 30 seconds left in the fourth was just a terrible decision because we all saw that Carlos Hyde recovered his own fumble. But I mean, even if you think there's a 1% chance it could work out, they were going to call a timeout anyway to stop the clock before the 2 minute warning. So by using the challenge, you're using the timeout effectively anyway. So, if you just truly think there is no chance about the Hyde thing being ever being the Cardinals ball, I understand that, but I think in the kind of brief moment, it ended up being a pretty smart call overall. Just there wasn't much of a lose factor to the decision. Also at the end, some people were saying there should have been a hands to the face call on Russ on that last kind of throwaway to drive. Chill out, everybody. That was pretty weak. Play some football. I don't want to hear that. I guess the more questionable calls at the end of the game, deep pass into the end zone, if not the 1 yard line, intended for Larry Fitzgerald. Was a situation where the safety came over top, got there a little early. They were trying to say that he was going for the ball, so it was okay. And he got there early, but you know what? Why are we targeting Larry Fitzgerald so many freaking times on the final drive and not, DeAndre Hopkins or pretty much anybody else? So it's a situation where, Fitz probably had it, probably should have gone to DPI there, but I don't know. It was still, I was happy to see him play. I'm always team let the boys play, so, I'm sorry for all the, fans out there I'm pissing off right now who are saying, how could you say that shouldn't have been a call? But I am a fan of let the boys play. So without further ado, let's get to some of these players. So Russell Wilson completed 23 of 28 passes, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns. We really saw them not let Russ cook as much in this one at all. But to his credit, he was just making one smart play after another. He also had 10 carries, 42 yards. There were a lot of passing plays where he was actually checking back into a run. So I don't think it was necessarily, the situation where the Seahawks really wanted to lean on the run more than usual. Carlos Hyde had a team high 14 carries. It wasn't like they were truly trying to, handicap Russ or anything like that in terms of just his total passing game volume. But I think it was more Russ's decision to not force things as much. We had a lot of interceptions over these past few weeks, and Russ did seem to make a concerted effort to not really take as many risks. Obviously, didn't lead the same sort of fantasy production we're used to, but got that rushing yard, and he's already really close to surpassing his 2019-2018 totals there. So it wasn't the blow-up performance that we're used to, but I'm sure he will still be, right around that QB1 borderline when this week is all said and done. First touchdown to DK Metcalf was just, vintage Russ, keeping the play going, always keeping his eyes downfield and hit him on a line in the back of the end zone. Also had a second touchdown to Locke from 11 yards out. Then, same thing. We were just able to put the ball right where it needed to be. And then should have had a third first half touchdown, actually. Hit DK Metcalf quite literally in the helmet, but, wasn't able to come down with it. So didn't see, a ton of overwhelming production in the second half. But all in all, very smart game from Russ, even if it didn't include, too heavy of a dose of his usual fireworks that he's just been spoiling with us, for the better part of the last decade. With the run game, it was the Carlos Hyde show for Seahawks. He ended up playing 42 snaps. Beau Scarborough was only at 12. DJ Dallas was at 6. Hyde was someone that we were treating as a lower end RB2 this week. Just weren't really sure how healthy he would be coming off that injury. But with this sort of usage, he's going to be in that higher end RB2 conversation, I think, moving forward, because we didn't even see Dallas or Scarborough especially. Scarborough didn't have any targets. DJ Dallas had just 2 of them. So with Hyde actually leading the way in targets, we definitely didn't expect that. So Travis Homer and Chris Carson were inactive. Obviously, if either of them come back, that could change things up a little bit. But with this sort of usage, Hyde can be a legit, higher end RB2. Don't forget, he did run for 1,000 yards for the Texans last year. Looked spry enough in this one. Absolutely truck sticked Patrick Peterson at one point and had a nice little 17-yard run earlier off a cutback. So, it was pretty funny seeing him get a target 40 yards downfield. He's never obviously been one of the league's better pass down backs, but clearly the Seahawks are comfortable enough with Hyde to keep him out there pretty pretty much all 3 downs. And when you're in the league's highest ranked scoring offense, that sort of role is going to be tough to ignore in fantasy land. So good stuff from a former Ohio State Buckeye, Carlos Hyde. Do keep an eye on the Beau Scarborough situation. He suffered a fourth quarter injury that did not look good, but one of these things where, even with or without Beau, I still think Hyde is going to be a pretty clear lead RB1 in Seattle. Looking at these wide receivers, DK Metcalf, quite the up and down game. I mentioned the touchdown hitting him in the face and falling to the ground, but had his own touchdown that did count in the first drive of the game. Only 5 targets overall, but had a long, I think it was like 30 or so yard completion over Peterson where he put him on freaking skates, but that got called back on a very questionable holding call. And then he came back and dropped another pass later, but did have another just play that really I thought showed off kind of his full kind of just skill set as a receiver, because everyone looks at him as this guy that can't really create any yak, and all he is a speed guy that can run down the field and maybe just out physical dudes. But truly, I mean, let's get over the 3-cone jokes, everyone. The freaking route he ran on Peterson, where it was like a stutter step go back into a comeback, and then he caught the ball and immediately put his foot in the ground and got upfield. I mean, he put Peterson in an absolute blender. I mean, that was one of the worst drives we've seen for a single defender in a long time, because right after that, Hyde truck sticked Peterson. So yeah, not good. I mean, it was still maddening to see Metcalf only get 5 targets in this matchup, because we saw literally every single time, Metcalf was trying to test Peterson, he was getting the better of him. I mean, Troy Aikman was even saying on the broadcast just the amount of times where it looked like, Metcalf would definitely be able to just outrun him at this point in Peterson's career. I certainly agree with that. So only 5 total targets, unfortunate. It's good he found the end zone. Metcalf and Tyler Lockett found the end zone in the same game, people. It is possible. But yeah, I still think Metcalf, more weeks than not moving forward, will be the guy. But credit to Tyler Lockett. He looked healthy out there, caught all 9 of his targets for 6-7 yards in the score. Just didn't see that usual, big play ability from Lockett. And it wasn't even his fault. It was just most of his targets were underneath. But yeah, his long catch was only 11 yards. Pretty funny touchdown, just in that, we had the PFF Fantasy Twitter account. I love those guys, but, calling toe drag swag, he caught the ball like freaking 6 feet, away from the sideline. So I don't know. I thought that was a little bit of reach down the old toe drag swag qualifier, but whatever. It's a touchdown, it's a touchdown, it's a touchdown. Good game from Locke. Good to see that he is healthy. And the rest of the Seahawks receivers, nobody cleared 20 yards. Greg Olsen, unfortunately, had a really nasty looking non-contact injury. Hope he's okay. If he's not, it's going to be a Jacob Hollister, Will Dissly committee. We can feel slightly better about it in fantasy, but still not a situation that we can treat with all that much confidence. They would be low-end tight end twos, I think, moving forward. David Moore had one, just wasn't even put together really any big plays. That was kind of the story of the night for the Seattle offense. Again, I mean, Russell Wilson did not make any dumb decisions really the entire game. Had 2 fumbles, but he didn't lose either of them. But didn't make any dumb decisions throwing the ball the entire game. Because of that, we it was good and they won the game and all that. But we didn't see the usual allotment of just one splash play after another. So great win for the Seahawks. Now moving on to the Cardinals side of the ball. So Kyler, 29 for 42, 269 yards, pair of touchdowns. Did take 3 sacks, but no interceptions. We just didn't really see the Cardinals, consistently move the ball up and down the field, particularly in the first half. Kyler seemed to be, pressing a little bit out there. It was interesting watching, the Seahawks with Jamal Adams and just having, I know Adams got put in a blender at one point by Kyler and he didn't look all that great in coverage, but, it was Adams, it was KJ Wright had a great open field tackle. It was Carlos Dunlap all over the place all game. Like they just had a bunch of athletic guys running around there with Kyler that really stopped his, stopped his ace card, and that is his rushing ability. Only had 5 carries for 15 yards and no scores on the night. So again, 21 points against the Seahawks team. They moved down and, again, had a chance to force overtime depending on what the ref was feeling like in that moment. So it wasn't an awful performance, but for a guy that was coming into the game averaging the most fantasy points per game by a quarterback in any single season ever, certainly wasn't the performance we were quite looking for there. So again, like with Russ, we're going to see bigger games moving forward from Kyler. Certainly wouldn't worry about this performance by any stretch of the imagination. If Kyler's floor game at this point is 269 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air without much in the rushing department, we will take that any day of the week. With these running backs, continue to see it split pretty evenly down the middle. Last week, it was almost exactly 50-50 in terms of snaps. And This week, Kenyon Drake was at 32 snaps. Chase Edmonds was at 27. Look, I mean, it's a result of being in the Cardinals offense, so we got to give them credit that. But, I don't think we were too off base treating both these guys, outside the top 24 options going into this game. I don't want to be, the dude that's yelling about process over results. I get it. But at the same time, Drake, 11 carries, 29 yards and a touchdown. He did catch 4 passes, but we haven't seen him used like that really all season. Not taking anything away from Drake. I mean, the touchdown was able to stretch out. He looked pretty explosive on a couple of his receptions. He's definitely, closer to full health, I think, than he was initially coming off his injury. But again, only having those 15 total touches, though, we were seeing a lot more than that earlier in the year. And Chase Edmonds only had 2 carries and was really being used purely as a 2-minute third down primary pass down back. But he did catch 4 passes for 36 yards and a touchdown, which he was lined up in the slot and he just ran this crosser and literally nobody guarded him. I think I saw ESPN stats and info say it was like the second, he had the second largest amount of total yards of separation of any touchdown scored this entire season. Like, he was all alone in the end zone. He had some nice plays otherwise. They actually like using him in the slot. He runs some nice routes. He's an explosive guy. Again, I'm not taking anything away from how Drake or Edmonds played. I'm just saying in terms of their usage, it's going to be tough to kind of expect them to find the end zone every week. Because you take away those scores, just wasn't quite, what we would expect from RB2s. They did score, but again, the best thing we can do as a, fantasy football analyst are just trying to project the future. We're going to have more success just trying to project the volume versus what they're always going to be making of it. So good games from Edmonds and Drake in terms of what they produce, but I'd be hesitant in assuming that these guys are going to be able to kind of coexist moving forward based on this usage. Looking at the wide receivers, it was another game where DeAndre Hopkins just wasn't really getting going early on in it. I don't think it was last week. I know he went the hell off last week and had the catch of the year. I'm not trying to say that, but I think it was maybe that Cowboys game. It was last week, or it was 2 weeks ago. Dolphins game and that Cowboys game. Like, we see these first halves where Hopkins literally just doesn't do anything. He only had 1 catch in the first half in this one. They were trying to get him more involved in the third. Saw a little more on-field frustration out of Hopkins, and I don't like when we just chastise these wide receivers for getting mad about not getting the ball. Shouldn't you want your best players to want to have the ball? Like, it's not like they're freaking out and tearing into their teammates. Like, they just want to win. They want the ball. Show me a receiver that doesn't want the ball, and I'll show you a receiver that shouldn't be out there. So, situation where I'm not criticizing Hopkins for that by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, it was like, why is Hopkins only finishing with 8 targets and we got old man Larry Fitzgerald finishing with 10? To Larry's credit, he caught 8 of them for 62 yards, but at this point, come on, guys. We know Hopkins is, if he's not the best wide receiver alive, he is pretty darn close. We can have a conversation about that, and he would need to be heavily discussed. And just with the types of targets they're getting Fitzgerald, like screens and just some of these just easy completions that would be so much better used in Hopkins' hands and Kirk's hands, even Andy Isabella, who, had 1 catch for 6 yards. And I didn't even remember seeing that one. He had a target at the end of the game. It's like Isabella, if you look at just Kyler Murray's most efficient receivers throughout his career, it has been Isabella's, I think, still at the top of the list. And I realize it's a small sample size, everybody, but still, pull out the 4 or 5 actual big plays Isabella's made over the past 2 years. I think that's probably more than Fitz has a total, with about 10 times as much opportunity. So Fitz is a freaking legend. Larry Legend, Hall of Famer. I get it, but at this point, I think he is holding back. He's holding back the Cardinals offense from being the true best version of himself. Like, why are we messing around with these actual tight ends and Dan Arnold, Max Williams? I'm not even trying to be a dick here. Like, make Larry Fitzgerald a tight end in this offense. They barely kind of use them as true inline options anyway. Like, don't make the tight end a wide receiver. Make the wide receiver a tight end and let that be Larry Fitzgerald. But I digress. It is what it is. We just got to continue to kind of remember with Christian Kirk, I think specifically, I realize he runs a different route tree than Fitz, but just having someone like that out there that can still somehow get double-digit targets in the game, it doesn't help anyone else in this passing game. So, somewhat disappointing performance from Hopkins and Kirk. Hopkins finishing with 5 catches, 51 yards. Kirk, 4 catches, 50 yards. I guess very disappointing for Hopkins, particularly against, by far the worst defense in the league, production allowed the wide receivers. So you did not want to see that, but it's been a situation with the Cardinals passing game all year. Other than Kyler to Hopkins, we just haven't seen them consistently flow. And you know what? When Kyler's usually picking up so many yards and touchdowns on the ground, hasn't quite mattered. But we did see in this one, they weren't able to move the ball as well as they would have liked when it counted. So Great win for the Seahawks, 28-21. Again, don't let that final score fool you. This was quite the weird game. Credit also, let's see, Dan Arnold had a nice touchdown. Just reading through my final notes. 4-yard touchdown on a slant, big guy. I'm not taking anything away from Dan Arnold saying they should maybe consider playing Larry Fitzgerald like they play him right now. I just think that'd be a better role for Fitz at this point in his career. Might get him some better matchups out there. But Christian Kirk, I mean, he showed some good ability in the intermediate underneath areas of the field. I know he's a guy that coming out of school, people were thinking he was a slot only. He kind of disproved that his first year. And then, we've seen a little bit more of the past 2 years. They just want to use him as his field stretcher, but he's more than that. I mean, Kirk's someone that was probably a little lower on than I should have been going in this year, but this dude's a complete receiver. I do think there's a chance he can kind of be the long-term number 2 guy in this Arizona Cardinals offense. It wasn't, a big night for him, but I just think that, you look a little bit closer at the routes he was running and some of the plays he was making. It was good stuff. He really is a lot more of a complete receiver than I think most would have imagined at this time. So Seahawks 28, Cardinals 21, fun Thursday night football. And we got good Sunday night, Monday night along the way, everyone. They finally gave us a solid primetime week. Quick shout out to our sponsors at Monkey Knife Fight before we keep on going. Guys, I have people that say, Ian, I want a discount. I want to go on PFF, get a subscription, but I don't want to pay full price. This is what you need to do. Go to Monkey Knife Fight, deposit $20, use code PFF. You receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's a $40 value for just $20. And then you can take that $20 and use it to play prop games and daily fantasy contests on Monkey Knife Fight. And, hey, maybe you turn that $20 into even more money. Maybe you don't. Either way, you're getting that $40 subscription for $20. So that is my advice to anyone that wants a PFF Edge subscription for less than $40. Monkey Knife Fight, code PFF, make it happen, people. All right, on this Friday edition of the podcast, we always go over some of the key entries to watch ahead of Friday. Look, we're going to get all throughout Friday afternoon, just the official kind of questionable in, out type of injury designations. Usually the West Coast teams kind of get their stuff in around 6, 7 p.m. Eastern time at the latest. And then so we have up until Sunday, and then an hour and a half before kickoff, teams are required to submit their stuff. So if you have some time, ahead of Sunday at 1 o'clock to look over the rosters, at noon, would certainly recommend doing so. Right now, I'm working off of what we've seen Wednesday, Thursday. But again, make sure you check out those final designations before we get into actual Sunday. So looking at these, the big one, Alvin Kamara. Did not practice on Thursday with a foot injury after being limited on Wednesday. Obviously, I already have Breeze, out this week, and it's looking like at least 1, if not 2 more with a rib injury and collapsed lungs. So Alvin Kamara said, I'll be all right. He's did this earlier in the year. I mean, he hasn't been playing at 100%, even if he sure looks like it whenever he has the ball in his hand. So if he's active, top 3 back. If he's not, Latavius Murray is a legit RB1. Now, I know we've gotten burned with Alexander Madison. We got burned with Chase Edmonds, even though Edmonds had the volume we wanted. Latavius Murray, he is the guy that, honestly might deserve like top 5 treatment, even if Kamara's out. I wouldn't rank him top 5, but, we could talk ourselves into it because we had 2 instances in 2019 of Latavius Murray working as the lead guy, and they didn't even pretend to use another back out there. 84% snaps, 82% snaps. He had 32 touches and then 30 touches, and, their wins over the Bears and the Cardinals in those games cleared, 150 total yards in each of those and scored 4 total touchdowns. So just absolute massive performances from Latavius. They have no problem with leaning on him with Alvin Kamara out. I'm not even saying don't be afraid. You need to put Latavius Murray in any fantasy football league lineup that you have if Alvin Kamara is out. The same goes for, obviously, if Alvin Kamara is in. Panthers quarterback Teddy Bridgewater is limited with a knee and been limping at practice. NFL Network's Ian Rapoport reports Bridgewater's unlikely to play, so not good. This hurts everyone. I went through pretty much all my ranks when I kind of got this news that Bridgewater wasn't going to be playing, and just downgraded almost every single Panthers player by 3 or 4 spots. I love the XFL, everybody. I watched every single snap, and PJ Walker was just a great guy to watch. He was a joy. He was fun. He was athletic. He made a bunch of off-script goodness happen. And for those reasons, I don't think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. It's not like Philip Walker did not have, chances in the NFL to make a name for himself. He was with the Colts for years. He had plenty of opportunities in the preseason. As someone that really wishes Chad Swag Kelly would be out there, I can tell you that Walker was being outplayed regularly by Swag Kelly, who could not find a job in the league. So credit to Walker for going to Houston Roughnecks, playing a wide open June Jones offense and making plays. But unless we're talking, DFS, we just want to ride that cheap salary and, take a dart throw in a GPP. I don't know how you can get behind PJ Walker. I mean, I just think everything about his game game screams someone that can't quite work within the confines of an offense. They try to put too much on their own plate, and when they face NFL competition, they're no longer able to make the sort of athletic plays that have carried them throughout their career. In the XFL, when throwing in less than 2.5 seconds, PJ Walker was, remember, there were 8 XFL teams, so he was 7th in QB rating with a 4.2% touchdown rate. When he's throwing in more than 2.5 seconds, he was first in QB rating with a 15.2% touchdown rate. Truly, everybody, the plays this guy was making, while fun, usually were of the variety. The Johnny Manziel type stuff that looks great, captures your heart, looks awesome on a highlight, not exactly great when you're facing athletes that all of a sudden are just as fast as you at all areas of the field. So I am fading most of these guys and start sit questions in the Panthers offense with Bridgewater out. Look, Mike Davis, he's going to be getting absolutely fed, so I think he's someone that, you're still firing up as an RB2 with a decent level of confidence, but anybody close to Robbie and DJ Moore, give me the other guy. Got some Chiefs running backs missing practice, Clyde Edwards-Helaire with an illness, and also Darrell Williams not there on Thursday. So not sure what's going on. It doesn't seem like it's COVID, but we'll find out. Just got to monitor these illnesses as they come in. And I would just note that, the touch count between Clyde, wow, it's been in his favor in 3 games now with Le'Veon. It has been a little bit closer than I think maybe some people were suspecting, because Clyde, 85 snaps, Le'Veon only 52 snaps, but Clyde's had 19 carries, 12 targets, Le'Veon 16 carries, 4 targets. So it's clearly Clyde, but if he goes out, Le'Veon would actually be a higher end RB2 than I think Clyde would be if he's just in there with the normal setup. So, playing the Raiders, we're going to see all sorts of points. Nobody's implied for more points this week than the Kansas City Chiefs offense. So whoever is starting is going to be a solid RB2. It's just a shame that, we're not getting that true kind of top 5 option at the position in this Chiefs offense that we were hoping for. Also on the Chiefs, Sammy Watkins has been downgraded from full to limited. He's been coming back from a hamstring injury. Now apparently there's a calf issue. Oh man, just one thing after another with Sammy. It sucks. Hope he can get healthy. Look, that week 1 game and then also the playoff run, Sammy's been playing way better football than I think we're used to seeing in his past 4 to just 8 games he's been out there, but right now just not healthy. So, Mecole Hardman is on the COVID list, so we're looking at DeMarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, potentially joining Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce out there on the field, other than the run as the skill position guys, other than the running back. So I think Robinson and Pringle, boomer bust wide receiver 4s. This could just be a week where, Kelce and Hill are seeing, upwards of 15 targets each. It could be that situation, or we just get more rush attempts. So either way, I don't think Sammy with this injury is someone you want to count on in your lineups this week. With the Bengals, T. Higgins is not practicing due to an illness. Again, not sure if it's COVID, but just need to monitor. Would be a boost for, my guy Auden Tate if Higgins does end up missing this one, but I'm not sure we should be assuming that at this point. Either way, Tate wouldn't be someone we're looking to actively plug into fantasy lineups. One day, maybe, but definitely not today. Probably not tomorrow as well. Tyler Boyd, versus this football team defense, I think would be set up as, the best Bengals wide receiver, but I'm getting a little more worried about this game the more I look at it. There's going to be a ton of volume. Burrow has a league high 418 dropbacks through 10 weeks. But, we talked about it on this podcast all year. The one kryptonite for this Bengals offense is pressure. And the Washington football team, I believe they're 9th in, pressure rate on the season. They got all sorts of beasts on that defensive line. So, even if they aren't the Ravens, even if they aren't the Steelers, or even the, week 1 version of the Chargers, I do think there is a situation where they could make life really tough for Burrow and company, particularly if he's not going to have his full crew of skill position players, because Joe Mixon has been practicing all week with the foot injury. So, Giovanni Bernard out there, he's fine. I don't think, going from Mixon and Gio is this massive, downgrade in overall offensive efficiency or anything like that. But, especially this wide receiver room, the Washington football team is the league best defense in PPR points and the fewest PPR points allowed to the wide receiver position. So they are no joke. And I just think, with Alex Smith now playing some good ball, ideally turnover free after having some problems with that a couple weeks ago, might not be, the potential smash spot that we were hoping for out of this Bengals offense. A lot of injuries going around with the Packers. Devonte Adams did not practice on Thursday with an ankle injury. We got Allen Lazar still being limited with the core. Matt LaFleur said that he'll be eased back into the lineup. So even if Adams is out, we could seemingly fire up Lazar with some more confidence. I don't know. MVS, Equanimous, and St. Brown, they just got other options out there. Even I believe it's Shepard or the other guys. So they got other options out there they might roll out. Hopefully Adams, pushes through. If he does, obviously we're going to be going back to well with him as the overall wide receiver 1. But it's just unfortunate because they've really kept MVS in that field stretcher role for most of the year. And, this would be a game with Devonte out, as we saw Lazar do against the Saints. I think he'd be leaned on as a wide receiver 1, but it's just too concerning with the snap shares. If you're desperate, give me Lazard over MVS if Adams is out, but I just don't think either are going to be super recommended starts because credit to the Colts. I mean, they're a good secondary, and I've called them the F word. I've called them frauds throughout this year, and even though I don't think they're incredible, they're not the league's best pass defense. They are the only defense in the league to contest at least 20% of their opponent's targets against. So they're human. We saw Gardner Minshew go 19 for 20. Lamar go 19 for 23. Stafford threw for 336 yards and 3 tutties. Burrow threw for 313. Baker had a massive first half against them. But, every defense in the league has had these sort of, pick and grab quarterback performances against them. So Colts are legit. And, if it's going to be a banged up version of this Packers passing game, I do think it is fair to slightly downgrade Aaron Rodgers. But, we have seen him come through without his number one guy in the past. But in this matchup, I would probably knock him. He'd still be a top 8 quarterback, but I would knock him down probably a couple slots without Davante Adams. With the Colts, so Jack Doyle is back practicing in full with the concussion. Meanwhile, Mo Alley-Cox is limited with a knee injury. This is a 3 tight end committee with Trey Burton also there. I lean Mo Alley-Cox, but man, just try to stay away from a tight end room featuring not 1, not 2, but 3 guys. I'm passing on that overall. Unfortunately, Deandre Swift, who practiced in full on Wednesday, was now a DNP on Thursday, and they think he has a concussion. So this sucks. Right when he sees the role, we've been talking on this podcast all week about how great Swift looked in that game as a runner, as a receiver. Just the things he can do in all facets of the game have been truly awesome. Had Marcus Mosier on the Thursday edition of this podcast, big dynasty guy. He has Swift as a top 5 dynasty running back right now. And, even if I might not go that high, I think he should probably be in anyone's top 10, top 12 at the latest. So if Swift is out, I think Adrian Peterson slides in as kind of a borderline RB2. I don't think Kerryon Johnson will be that guy. Look, Lions gave AP at least 12 combined carries and targets in 5 of their first 6 games. And Swift only had that once during that stretch. Kerryon hasn't had that sort of workload all season long. So for whatever reason, they're prioritizing AP over Kerryon. Maybe they're trying to keep Kerryon healthy. I don't know. Nobody knows what's going on in Detroit. It is upsetting that Swift will be out. Maybe with Kenny Golladay practicing, though, with this hip injury, we could see a situation where Stafford just really airs it out. Stafford's banged up himself with a thumb, but he was limited and seemingly is good to go, after getting there in practice on Thursday. So Stafford's had under a 10-yard average target depth in every game without Golladay. But now you take away Swift. That's their main kind of underneath guy. So we can really see Stafford looking downfield more than ever, throwing to Golladay, throwing to Jones. And so if Golladay is back, he's a top 12 wide receiver for me. Jones would drop down to more of a lower end wide receiver 3, maybe more mid-tier, because again, I do think Stafford could have to throw more, but just realize, we have not seen, I should say, too many instances of both Golladay and Jones balling out in the same game. With Golladay out, Jones has 5 touchdowns in 5 games this year, so you can keep him in that wide receiver 2 range if Golladay is sidelined, but otherwise, I do think Jones deserves a downgrade, even if we are going to see more of a gunslinger attitude out of Stafford. Calvin Ridley has been limited all week with a foot injury. Look, I do this radio show in Wisconsin every Thursday for 30 minutes. I got to start sick question. That included Calvin Ridley. Guys, the only thing that offends me more than trying to bench A.J. Brown is trying to bench Calvin Ridley. Stop it. Don't do it. If he's healthy, he needs to be out there. Get Calvin Ridley in your lineup no matter what. I've already wasted your time by even talking about this. Drew Locke has been practicing throughout the week, or he practiced Thursday with the rib injury. Noah Fant was also limited with his rib injury. So Vic Fangio said he's confident Fant will play. He's already dealing with this high ankle sprain, though. Noah Fant truly is a warrior out there. He's still putting up numbers. I think last week was the first time all year he didn't have 35 receiving yards. So he's still got a nice floor, and at the tight end position, not like we have many better options to work with. So I still think Fant is in that mid-tier tight end one range, even though the ceiling will be so much higher if he was healthy. Sounds like Locke is trending towards playing. This is just a brutal matchup against this Dolphins defense that we have seen, really just, shut down many at quarterback this year. I think it's a bad matchup for Tua coming all the way to Denver as well. Brutal spot all around. Bet the under if it is not low enough already. Looking at let's see, we talked about the Bengals already. Duke Johnson returned to practice Thursday with the illness. So, Duke, 94% snap rate last week. He gets a Patriots defense that has a shell of themselves from what they were last year. And Duke balled out against them last year. This was actually one of his better games with 90 total yards on 14 touches and a score. Looked, far too fast for the linebackers to handle. And, I think we're going to see a much better version of Duke this week because, one, they're not playing in a freaking monsoon in Cleveland. And two, I'm cautiously optimistic that Deshaun Watson is going to lead this offense to more than 7 points here moving forward. So, maybe Duke just struggles and they get Buddy Howell a little more involved. But I don't know, everyone. I think, the performance, people looked at the, 5.4 fantasy points or whatever it was Duke finished with and just kind of wrote it off. I mean, he trucked the living shit out of Andrew Sendejo. He had another nice 23-yard run where he left multiple guys kind of grasping for air. Like, there was nothing about that performance that said Duke Johnson can't be there in between the tackles guy. We have so many years of evidence that he can be that guy. I am not giving up on Duke as an RB2 just because of that game last week. Start him with confidence against the Patriots. Let's see what else we got here. Andy Dalton is back in action with a clear concussion protocol, done with COVID, and we also got Zeke practicing in full out of the bye. So look, we in about eight total quarters with Andy Dalton. His target distribution was Amari Cooper with 18, CeeDee Lamb with 18, Zeke down to 13, Michael Gallup with 10, Dalton Schultz with 9, Tony Pollard with 7, and a bunch of guys with 5 or fewer targets. So Cooper and Lamb at the top. I do think those guys are pretty much the only receivers you can start against this Vikings defense that really was not good in the first part of the season, but since their bye, we've seen them playing a lot better, and I think we always knew this was going to happen at some point, under a Mike Zimmer coach defense. They still don't have, the overwhelming talent without the Daniil Hunter or, a truly great cornerback or anything like that, but I still think that you just look at them as a whole, and they have more than enough firepower to make life hell for Dalton Company with this Cowboys, offensive line still being anyone's idea of a patchwork unit. So, hey, Cooper, we're getting the volume back. I think he's, a recommended start wide receiver 2. Zeke, we're now got the bell cow back for an offense that, even though they're not going to even come close to resembling what they did with Dak, we can at least maybe expect to flirt with 20 points more weeks than not, which is a lot more than what we could say in past weeks. I'm fine going the well with CeeDee Lamb as this wide receiver 3, but other than that, people just still keep in mind, like, Andy Dalton is not the savior in Dallas, but I do think that, because of the way he kind of focuses his targets around Amari Cooper, we can get some value there. Just 2 more here. We got Matt Breida practicing in full with a hamstring injury. So, I don't want to say I was buying in the Salvon Ahmed hype. I ranked him as my RB23 before even knowing that Matt Breida was going to be back. But I just think that now it's more of a situation where we should show a lot of, caution with Ahmed. So, I have him ahead of Melvin Gordon, Adrian Peterson, Nyheim Hines, but, had him behind Drake, behind Antonio Gibson, behind McKissick, Damian Harris, Rojo, Kalen Ballage, Giovanni Bernard, Duke Johnson. So I could even see myself moving Gordon and AP ahead of Ahmed at this point, because we don't know what this backfield is going to look like. This guy has been okay over the past 2 weeks, but I don't know if it's enough to say that Breida isn't going to be that guy, because since week 1, Breida has been their lead number 2 back, and Myles Gaskin was their number 1. So we never saw a situation where Breida has been out there and hasn't been given some level of a role. So at a minimum, I don't think Ahmed's going to have, the massive 80% plus role that we saw him kind of have over this last week. Even with Jordan Howard gone, I do think it is, concerning enough with Breida being back, particularly with him taking, the fantasy-friendly pass-down work, that, I'm not going to be prioritizing Salvon Ahmed as the RB2 like I thought maybe we were at the beginning of the week. So Jordan Howard got cut by the Dolphins. Now he's on the Eagles practice squad, everybody. I'm not too worried about it with Miles Sanders, but, he actually did outplay Miles Sanders for the first part of last year, which was wild. Sanders' big breakout came when Howard was on the sideline with a shoulder injury, but, come on, he's been one of the Eagles' lone bright spots on offense throughout the year. Really, really hope it's not going to be a problem. I got my fingers crossed. I'm knocking on wood. I think we'll be good, everybody. Last one, Vikings tight end Irv Smith has been limited all week with a groin injury. Kyle Rudolph is a legit tight end 1 if Irv Smith stays out, which is both, a testament that in this offense, if we have one tight end, it can work out pretty well in fantasy land, and also just a reality that this position, behind Travis Kelce and Darren Waller more weeks than not, is just a dumpster fire. Last week, Rudolph caught 4 passes for 63 yards and lost a fumble. That was good enough to be the PPR tight end 7 on the week. So this position, guys, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, if Irv Smith is out, Kyle Rudolph will be a recommended top 10 option at the position. That's going to do it, everybody. Thank you, as always, for listening to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. We come out with these every single day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can catch me on Twitter at iHartitz. I send out the episodes in the morning, and also got a fair amount of articles going throughout the week as well. So again, just want to make all you fans out there the most informed fantasy football, real life football, just football fans out there, and we like to have a little bit of fun while doing so. So I'm Ian Hartitz. This has been the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, and until next time, take care, everybody.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel, and if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.